The clink of coins hitting the kitchen counter always made me flinch. It meant he'd lost again. That night, though, felt worse than usual. The house reeked of cigarette smoke mixed with sweat. The TV murmured in the background, replaying a game no one was watching. My father sat at the table, his shirt half undone, a cheap whiskey glass in hand, and a simmering rage that didn't need explanation. He looked up when I entered, bloodshot eyes watery with something unspoken. "You got paid today, right?" I hesitated. My paycheck was tucked away in my wallet, barely enough to cover rent and groceries for my son and me. I already knew what was coming. "Yeah," I murmured. "But I need it for bills." He slammed the glass down so violently that the whiskey splashed across the table. "Bills? You think your bills matter more than family? Dad." I tried to tread carefully. "You owe those people thousands. I can't fix that. I can barely keep food on the table. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching this video from." He leaned forward, the skin around his eyes tightening. "You wouldn't even have food if it weren't for me. I raised you, didn't I?" "Raised me?" I nearly laughed. "You drank, you gambled, you destroyed everything you touched. You didn't raise me, you ruined me." The silence afterward was sharp, cutting through the hum of the TV. He pushed back his chair slowly, the screech echoing through the kitchen. "Say that again." I didn't respond. I didn't have to. He grabbed the first object he could find, the thick black cord from the old radio that hadn't worked in years, and swung it. The first strike caught my arm with a fire-like sting. The second smashed into my shoulder. I tried to move, but there was no escape. "You ungrateful brat," he shouted. "You think you're better than us? You think I'm the problem? You're the reason we suffer." Every word jolted through me, each swing of the cord slicing the air as the ceiling fan hummed above. My mother leaned against the doorway, arms crossed, her face blank. "Just give him the money," she said softly. "He's stressed." Something inside me broke at that moment. Not a bone, not skin, but something deeper, the part that had made me believe family meant something. When he finished, he tossed the cord on the table and reached into his pocket. "You'll transfer it tomorrow," he said, breathing heavily. "If not, I'll find another way." He left the kitchen, muttering curses under his breath. My mother followed, whispering words I couldn't catch. I stayed behind, trembling, red marks blooming on my arms. The house felt like it was closing in. Upstairs, I heard my son's footsteps. He'd woken. I went to him, forcing a smile I didn't feel. "Mommy, did Grandpa hurt you again?" he asked softly. I swallowed hard. "No, baby. It's okay." He frowned, his small voice quivering. "You said that last time." I stayed silent, tucking him back into bed. His tiny hands gripped the blanket as I sat with him until he slept, my eyes fixed on the bruise forming on my wrist under the dim nightlight. By morning, my decision was made. I wouldn't call the police. I wouldn't post online. That would only make me the problem again. But I also wouldn't give him a single penny. I packed a bag, placed my son in the car, and drove to work early. I told my manager I needed extra shifts without explaining why. I worked tirelessly, saving every possible penny. For weeks, the calls came, first angry, then desperate, then threatening. When I ignored them, my mother left a message. "He's in trouble. They're coming for him. You could stop this if you wanted to." I deleted it. Maybe for once, the trouble that always hunted me would find him instead. And when it did, I'd be ready, not to save him, but to make sure he truly understood suffering. That night, as I locked the diner doors and watched the lights flicker out, I realized something. For the first time, I wasn't afraid of him. He'd taught me cruelty. Now it was time he learned consequences. I stopped sleeping the night I decided not to hand him another rupee. It wasn't dramatic. No slammed doors, no speeches, just the soft, steady click of the motel clock, the hum of the overhead light, and my son's gentle breathing. I stared at the ceiling until dawn, thinking of every time I'd sacrificed for their peace, every tip, every last dress for an interview, every quiet debt I'd covered. I had been their silent bank, never repaid. The next morning I went to work, masking the bruise under my smile and a flower on my apron. George slid a sandwich across the counter. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. I wanted to say no, but that would have opened wounds I couldn't trust anyone to heal. Instead, I began making a practical list. Survival steps, things that smelled of caution. Open a new bank account, get a different phone number, pick up extra shifts, register my son for after-school care, find a small room where his grandfather couldn't terrorize him. Each item went in the margin of a receipt, folded into my wallet like a prayer. He called that night. His voice was the same, oily and commanding. You'll give it to me tomorrow. You know what happens if you don't. I could have trembled. Instead, I said calmly, no. The silence on the other end weighed heavier than his anger. You think you can leave us? He spat. You think you're better than us? The exact phrase he had hurled at me like a weapon so many times before. I'm not better, I said. I'm done being yours. He cursed and hung up. The adults in the house likely heard nothing. My son slept on, unaware of the promise his tiny face had inspired me to keep. Over the next 2 weeks, I became meticulous. I took every extra shift George offered, scrubbed plates until my fingertips bled, opened a savings account solely in my name, hiding the ATM card taped beneath the diner register. I picked up a weekend job delivering groceries, early mornings, heavy bags, quiet streets. Each night, I labeled envelopes with dates and small goals. Rent $10.15, tuition $11.01, bus pass $10.20. The money grew and so did my resolve. When my father called, the line sounded hollow. Your mother's thinking of selling the TV, he said. You could help, you know. No, I replied, setting the phone down. I left a message about shame, duty, and the way our family operated. I played it back once, then deleted it. Part of me wanted the satisfaction of imagining that my refusal would sting them, that it might force change. But they didn't change. They were experts at staying the same. So I watched. I learned their patterns. I noticed how Dad tiptoed around collectors on the phone, how Mom stopped picking up neighborhood calls about brunch. I overheard a friend from the betting shop tease Dad about a looming deadline. They were solvent only when someone else footed the bill. In every meaningful way, they were dependent. I began leaving small things where I knew they would be discovered. Unpaid bills tucked into the newspaper they left on the porch. A past due notice slid under the teapot where Mom poured her morning tea. I didn't confront them directly. I didn't accuse them of wrongdoing. I let the paperwork speak. Bureaucracy rarely forgives a messy account. People started noticing. Neighbors murmured about overdue notices. Cousin called to check on Dad. Even competitors at the card table grumbled while keeping their distance. Mom's facade didn't crumble immediately. She wasn't that easy to unravel. But she became quieter at family events, her smiles measured. What I truly wanted wasn't public humiliation. I wanted them to experience the cold logic of consequences. Missed payments, calls they couldn't charm away. The subtle erosion of status that comes from realizing your safety net has holes. I also prepared for the moment they might come for me. I learned enough legal basics to keep my son safe without lawyers, mapped emergency contacts, shelters, and community support. I arranged short-term rent options in case I couldn't cover a week. I made connections at my son's art class center, people who could watch him if I had a late shift, who could witness the life I was building. I kept my plans practical, small, avoiding drama that could fail spectacularly. Then there was a quiet revelation, a fleeting moment between closing the diner and sliding the keys into my pocket. I didn't crave revenge. I craved independence. I wanted mornings where I could breathe without tallying sins to keep the house warm. I wanted my son to grow up watching a mother who could say no, letting him see adults face consequences, witnessing what happens when promises aren't kept, felt like a lesson I could embrace. So I stopped paying. Their debts became theirs. Collectors left messages that ended when they reached my phone because I stopped answering. I canceled the one service Dad relied on for fixes. I refused to bankroll their next scheme. I watched as their borrowed world shifted, slowly, quietly. Not explosively. Not dramatically. Gradually. In that quiet, I discovered a power I hadn't known I had. I slept through nights without fear. Each morning I opened envelopes and crossed off goals. They claimed I was replaceable. I discovered I could choose what to hold on to and what to let crumble. By the third call from a collector in a week, I had enough saved for a deposit on a small room that smelled of paint and possibility. I signed the lease with steady hands, moved the mattress into my car, and drove away while the town slowly woke. Looking in the rearview, Their house was a pale rectangle among the trees. For the first time, I didn't feel like I was fleeing. I felt like I was moving forward. A week after moving, silence felt like a luxury I hadn't thought I could afford. No yelling. No phone calls. No pacing footsteps demanding payment. Just the fridge humming, my son's pencil scratching homework, and my own calm, unshaken breath. Then one night Mom appeared. Late, 11:45 p.m. A knock at the door. My heart raced, but I didn't open immediately. Through the peephole I saw her hair disheveled, makeup smudged, eyes wild. "Please," she said when I cracked the door. "Your father. They took everything. The car, the furniture, he's hiding. They'll come for me next." I didn't give her the pity she expected. "You mean they came for what you owed?" I asked quietly. "You don't understand," she snapped. "They'll kill him." "I understand perfectly," I replied. "I told you I couldn't keep paying. You forced me to anyway. Now you can't buy your way out either." Her lips trembled. "You sound just like him." "No," I said. "I sound like someone who learned from him." She glanced over my shoulder, voice lowering. "You'd let your own father die?" I stared. "He's already killed enough of me." The door closed before I could see if she had more to say. Her fist hit the wood once. Twice. Then silence. I leaned against the door until her footsteps faded. 2 days later, a neighbor told me Dad had been arrested outside a casino. Broke, yelling, refusing to leave until someone extended credit. Mom packed a bag and vanished. No calls. No texts. Quiet became permanent. Months passed. My son grew taller. Laughter returned, small but real. His school projects, late-night cartoons, the world didn't crumble when I said no. I didn't become wealthy, but I became free. Sometimes, passing the old diner window, I glimpsed my reflection and saw the bruises that no longer existed. The cord marks faded, but the memories remained. Still I smiled because pain was no longer inherited. Silence no longer imprisoned me. Dad once claimed I caused their suffering. Perhaps he was right. I made them feel the weight of what they inflicted, powerlessness, consequence, and loss. But I didn't do it from hate. I did it because I finally grasped what he never did. Suffering ends not when you inflict it, but when you stop letting it define you. And that is exactly what I did. I stopped being his victim. I became his reminder. Please subscribe to our channel and tell us in the comments where you're watching this video from.